So I'm with Cathy Boyer today, who's one of our plein air artists who is going to be painting upside down, which is a really wonderful thing if you're a beginning artist like me, to actually see what's going on. And why do you do that, Cathy?
I do it so that I cannot get stuck in what I think the item, what the subject looks like cognitively, and I can start to look at it as a shape.
Ah, okay. So what are you going to be painting for us today?
Today, I am going to paint a subject that I have done a lot of, which is the Barnhill Marina. I don't know if you can see the painting on the right.
Yes, we can see it.
There's one that's in full color. There's a photograph that is a little bit of a wide angle to it. So I don't know that that's accurate, but I'm going to take it as is. And then here down below is another painting where I used more of a value scale very carefully. So
if you can, let's lower the camera a little bit and we'll be able to see that one if possible. There we go. Right. I see.
So the values are not to be dismissed. Plein air, you can get very excited. I was always very excited to be out there, and I found that I wasn't recognizing a method that can help me stabilize and observe more carefully. I'll be right back. I'm going to turn this music down.
Okay.
So I'm demonstrating a method, and you'll see that it starts with drawing. I'm looking at negative shapes. And I'm not afraid to make a mistake because I can easily change.
Does the process of looking at drawing this way become easier the more you do it?
Yes. Yes. For example, I drew a horizon line that way, so that was a trick. But your eye starts to look for high points and low points. For example, there's a high point there
Mm-hmm.
and a low point, and this is a traditional drawing method taught in ateliers in Europe. And yes, that method of starting with very basic outlines the figure. For example, Charles Barg was very important contributor to lithographs that copied statuary from Grecian, Roman, Greco-Roman times, using this method of taking a statue and breaking it down into simple shapes. So this high point is here, and then he would make the line quality very elegant, because he would be deciding that each shape, if it's pleasing, would make a better whole, and that is through simplifying. So I pretty much now have this area here pretty accurate. This negative shape here.
Mm-hmm.
This these details in here help to make it more interesting for the eye, because it'll register to the eye as decorative, as functional. It helps them recognize the boat, that it is a boat. This line here is the reflection, but as you can see, there's some mass here that's a little fringy, and I can see it better upside down. I won't think of it as so much of a boat. I can see it, oh, this is a fringy sort of shape, and there are high points and low points in there as well. And what I mean by that is right here, there's a negative space. This comes out. There's something that comes way down here. And when you do a drawing practice that is Barg related in particular, which is available, I've seen a lot of them online. You learn a patience so that your drawing gets accurate, and that for me helped me be much more patient with plein air, because plein air actually does need a fair amount of method to really skillfully paint what you're excited about.
So you use this method when you're doing plein air as well?
Well, yes. When I'm doing plein air, most of the time now, I am doing a drawing first in charcoal. And then I spray it, and I did bring spray. Now, it could sound like it takes all the fun out of it, but I've spent a lot of hours in the field, and I've noticed that my batting average is finally improving. And that's difficult to change. You know, an old dog does not like new tricks. You know, it does not like to learn new tricks, but I felt that I needed to learn some new tricks.
Yeah, I find it hard enough to figure out what I'm going to paint, much less think about drawing it upside down.
Well, actually, you know what? I don't draw in the field upside down. Now,
okay.
That would be like Dadaism, right?
Yes.
Everything is the opposite. I don't know how those guys did not go crazy. So I'm glad we distinguished that. That would be really funny, bro.
Yeah.
Did I say your name right? Would you say your name for me again? Roz?
Rosalind. Yeah, Roz is fine.
Okay. Okay. All right. We're not into Dadaism. I'm having just a little bit of a trouble with this here in terms of, so I'll look at that shape, this shape, and I also could bring out a stick if I'm out in the field. I often do with figure, but plein air can offer the largest margin for error because you are going to reorganize the shapes when you're out there. This is, I'm working for reference, and really this is just a practice. So in the field, I'm not going to draw it in this level of detail. So I hope that I'm not confusing anyone.
Yes, no, that's helpful.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking at this dark shape here. So this is probably going to take patience to watch this, right? We have other things we could do. So
well, no, it's interesting.
Okay, good.
So when you say you use the stick, do you measure various heights and things by comparing that to the drawing?
I actually, yeah, well, not always here because it's so easy, but out in the field or with a live model, yes, I use the stick, and that also takes a lot of patience. That is what a lot of ateliers rely heavily on, is the stick. And so it is a new habit. It needs to be done well, and that can be a whole practice. So a lot of the arts just have a lot of training.
Yeah. So for those of us who don't know what an atelier is, can you tell us?
Yeah. Atelier means workshop, and a workshop in French was set up to train. People had to have a portfolio, and there was mostly only males allowed. And the master,
no surprise there.
Right. Right. And so they would commit to training someone if they look promising, a young man, usually very young. So a lot of Americans would go over to Europe to get trained. And then the artists themselves would decide that they were going to take their skills in another direction. And that direction would have been, it could have been the Impressionists had portable pigments, so they were no longer stuck in the studio doing realism, but the realism and how to turn the form with grayscale, and how they used the materials and the practice of doing figure all over and over again becomes embedded in their being. So they know how to do pretty much anything at that point, because they know how to use the charcoal. Now this one's gotten too dull, and I try to stay close to the practice.
In my limited experience, I've found that value studies are very helpful, not just to
fix it together. I feel like I'm pretty happy with this angle. This angle here. And some of this would be important to get this gesture, right? Because there's a gesture there. There's angles. It seems to be coming out, but I feel like I liked the anchor of this piece with these interesting shapes. So I feel like I'm ready, and I managed to smudge it a little. So I'll look at that again.
So you find that charcoal works better for you than graphite in doing this?
Yes. I think graphite tends to be a little more ingrained in there, and I can press this charcoal in. I got comfortable with charcoal in the atelier, but I do think it's more forgiving, and I can get more gesture with it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I can, I might want to get this in. And I wouldn't do this much out in the field,
Mm-hmm.
but this is kind of a combination here of a plein air studio experience. I've kind of consolidated it. All right, so I feel like this and that are anchored properly, and this is away from the edge. And if I didn't like the design, I would change it in Photoshop.
Oh, interesting.
But this is from Kinko's. This print is from Kinko's. It's 8x10, and I had them do grayscale. You can see the one with chroma over here.
Uh-huh. Yes, you can see more color in it.
Right, but with
Yeah.
chroma, you have other problems of challenging yourself to have the harmony. And so that would be another thing. I mean, that looks fairly, you could achieve that with a limited palette, picking things on the color wheel that were split complements, or with the formula that would fit those pigments are in, even with straight out of the tube in the color wheel. But that is just another skill. That's what excited me initially, was the temperature of everything in there. This is more green. This is more pink and blue. This is cooler. So that is a separate sort of process, with the color. And then really, I'm not trying to make it so complicated that it's not fun. But it does. There is a methodology. There's a methodology, and we can, when we take the time to learn it, it's pretty fun, because then you have more skill in your toolkit. Yeah. So I was going to I'm just going to stain this. So the Imprimatura, if I said it correctly, is I'm going to use black and green. But I did choose an Atelier style grayscale, which is not as cold as just gray. We have burnt umber and blue, ultramarine blue.
Okay.
That's a little dark. Okay. All right.
I see. So your charcoal is going to fit through the that first layer of paint, because it's you've got the fixative on there, correct?
And see, this is just considered right, the correct practice.
Mm-hmm.
And now I will be able to tackle the values better with just a little bit of a layer in turpentine, with turpentine, so that it'll dry really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And what kind of paper is this are you using?
This is Clausen's oil primed linen.
Okay.
It is also the right practice because they don't use these acrylic gessos. They want the real thing, which dates back to the 19th century and before then. So I'm hoping this won't bleed too much. I just switched to a value. Let's see, I have one, this is 5. This is the middle value. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So 7 values. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually, I should probably have 9. But I just switched to a slightly more neutral dark. And I'm just looking at the dark. So I'm looking at the shapes and the angles. And hopefully no one's falling asleep. How are you doing, Rob?
That's fascinating. You got the value strip on the right-hand side, which I think is helpful because it shows how you compared mixing your colors. How when you mixed your colors, did you just add a set amount to each, like add a little more white to each black to get it lighter and lighter?
It wasn't that intelligent in a sense, but what I did was I mixed the two, the warm and the cool, very dark together, got the darkest dark, and then I created the middle, what looked like the middle value.
Okay.
And I don't have as many as here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 can work, but this should be white.
Uh-huh.
Recalibrate everything. So I already made an error with that, but I'm okay with it. So I'm observing the angle. I'm going to observe the angles of this reflection. It is a little bit like painting by numbers to organize it.
Mm-hmm.
But don't let that discourage you, because there is a formula and you'll have energy left over to really decide what excited you. Was it the temperature? Was it some of the movement? Most artists want to really capture they want to capture the time of day and the light at that particularly. It's often very short, but if they've set something up, or they could just do a color study and then do grayscale studies are used a lot in composition. So this is really just an exercise in a grayscale study. It's not the whole, I'm not really even dealing with all the complexity that a master would be dealing with. Or someone who really just wants to do a really good landscape or a really good portrait. They may go and reorganize their drawing based on what they learn in the value study.
Yeah, I find that value studies very helpful, although they take a lot longer, because then when I finally do the painting, the drawing part, you know, it's I've got some memory of it, so it's easier the second time around almost.
Yeah, and it does lengthen the whole, what you feel is going to be the pleasure of it. And I think it's rethinking that the ones that get the artists that get the results, they've learned to look at things differently. You know, they will do, they when they go on site out in the field, they will do a drawing and decide which one fit pleases their aesthetic sense the most. So they save time right there. And that is a discipline. It slows everything down. Your inner child would say, this isn't very fun. All it is work. But then you end up studying with them because there is some value in that.
Uh-huh.
Or somehow they get the design is extremely important. So I'm noticing this, I'm looking at the shape in and of itself, I'm trying to get some flat value. And when I say flat value, it's just lay down one and then do the gradient on top of that. But I can do that later, actually. I want to get these basic values in so we can assess. So that one tends to be straighter. This one seems to get more diffused down here. Okay. Well, go ahead and go get something to drink if you're going to be here for a while because it's so hot out. Anybody wants to do that? Maybe it's just Roz and I.
Yeah.
I
That's
suspect.
okay. I will do that. Actually, it is very hot out. I'll be right back.
Okay.
So where did you learn the atelier method?
I went to a atelier in Oakland. I learned about it from a friend. And one of the teachers that's taught me is offering some training in, I think it's Emeryville area. I could provide more information on that. Her name is Tess Marie White. And I started with outlines that were lithographs of the Barg method. So Charles Barg, if anyone wanted to look him up, is pivotal in right use of line, so in line quality. And that is exactly how the Paris Atelier under Jerome started out his students with these Barg copies. And he has simple to complex. So in my plein air class, I am going to give my students homework that is a Barg drawing simplified. And I recommend any artist look up him because he's part of our inheritance, our heritage. And he showed everyone how to get the best line quality possible by making the shapes extremely pleasing to look at. You never could realize how beautifully they could be shaped and rendered. So that was his contribution. And I spent one day a week copying Barg outlines, they'd be figure or whatever, and I wasn't very good at.
It looks like the training is quite intense for this kind of thing.
It is, and that could be a turn off to our viewers, but I do recommend a beginning level of it, so that you start with basically you can move on to doing features of the face, which are very difficult. But when you start with a foot or a hand and you're just doing the outline, you can get acquainted quite well from those simple exercises.
Yeah, it looks like I pulled up a book here on Charles Bargue, Bargue, correct?
Right.
Drawing course. They have them on Amazon still, and
Right.
all 200 lithographs.
Right, and someone may not want to buy the book. They may want to locate some of the lithograph. Can you help me with that?
Lithograph, yes.
With they can be available. A lot of well-trained artists have made them available. Or you can buy the book if it's not a big deal and you want to have that around. I recommend that. And you can take it to Kinko's and seal it in plastic, or get a very high quality print and then put the copy on the left and the drawing on the right, and just work with that as an exercise. And you go back to it and you don't think about it. You're not in a hurry. It is a practice.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, it's they talk about teaching observational skills and using this method. And
Right.
it doesn't, it looks like it would be it doesn't look easy, but it looks like you could really improve over time when you practice enough.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, you do need, most of us need support with that. I paid for the support. And it was forthcoming, and it put me in a new place. And I'm really glad I'm not still lost with what I think is a good drawing.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So it raises the bar on your drawing, and it's nice to do it in a supportive way. I think it is not offered enough. It's not widely talked about in this country, but the ateliers insist on it. And the ateliers are starting to get more ground because of how the heritage is just so appropriate, so useful.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't recreating the wheel. We are using the methods of these masters. So you know, I realize this is a little tedious, but I'm trying to I'm going into a little detail, maybe too soon. I maybe should focus on this value, these two values here. So that is my tendency, is to get myopic, and believe me, it is not. It can. I could end up having to get rid of all that of those details if they aren't the right value.
Uh-huh.
So it can work against me. So I have put a value in here. I don't think it's quite light enough. But once you put down a mark, you are on your way to correcting. And when you do the drawing practice and you work on a painting that you want to develop more, you do a lot of corrections. You put something down and you feel secure. You don't get easily so frustrated because it's all an experiment with mark making and value. And you're not in a foreign territory. So I can look at this value and I can say, there is a lighter value over here with the cloud formation, and it's just so subtle, but I'm feeling like I'm hitting it correctly, and there is a gradient. It's just a little darker there. And I've learned to see all this because I was willing to stand and look, and then no one would approve it unless it was right. And you know, when you pay money, you cooperate.
Sure, sure.
I do feel much better about that whole practice, because in the arts, people work together, and there is competition, there is intensity, there is people frustrated with themselves, and there are people who are high performers. But it's all very stimulating because it does get you to do your best. And honestly, I think that's what people are after. You don't want someone to tell something, something's great when you know and they know that you could strive.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
do better. So I am really pleased I haven't been dumbed down with art. Okay, so it's still reading to me as it's lighter in the middle.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. I think it is.
And your viewer will find that entertaining because they'll figure out, and the eye sees the value very, very well. And they aren't going to be necessarily looking at mine with this example, but they can distinguish this very subtle gradient, and that pleases them. They are pleased when they can see something that's done with sensitivity and attempts to respect nature. So, and of course, nature is ultimately it's a huge entertainer of our senses. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. So I'm thinking that that's okay. I mean, it's not perfectly polished, but this is a rough start. And then I'm going to go into that one, which I'm going to start off as a middle gray. No, that's too dark. So that might not be my middle gray. So I'm okay with that. Nothing's perfect. I'm going to try and do these striations. And that was one. That was two, I think. Two. And so I'm using some of my skills from practicing with this striation. I'm trying to get them lined up properly, and they look very stripy, but it's I'm going to definitely soften them. Is everyone awake?
Yeah, still here.
Okay. Well, thank you, Roz. You're great support.
Well, I find it fascinating to watch different artists and how they approach their painting. There's of course no one right way to do it. But some ways are, more helpful than others. I've followed artists who tend to do all their sort of midtones first, and then come in and do their dark values last to make the lighter ones pop. And others who, just do it the other way.
Yeah.
I tend to work in watercolor, which is so I tend to try to hoard the whites and
Oh, right.
but I always find it interesting to see how oil painters do it differently than watercolor artists. It's
Yeah, we are reversing,
yes,
and I do think that the watercolorists have the toughest job. That they are so disciplined with anticipating,
mhm,
because of the limits in terms of getting like a lens flare, for example, where you want to get a really bright color and you just keep that area white, and then layer, you want it some luminosity, so
mhm.
you
Yeah, for that's where those of us who keep a tube of China white just in case.
okay, good, you can cheat. That's
You have to cheat.
but there's a lot of delayed gratification and planning.
Oh, sure.
So I bet you don't overshop. You probably don't overshop. When you buy stuff, you don't overshop.
No.
Good.
I mean, it's fun I enjoy mixing the colors too. I always find that interesting. Uh, but watching you work with oil, it seems like you can almost create a mood better than you can with watercolor, unless you're very good at watercolor painting.
Right.
Not to say that it's easier in oil, but you can sort of see the gradations better, where the various shades should almost go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think your medium is a lot tougher, and a lot of the masters would work in both. They
Hmm.
were, they got the extra benefits of that discipline doing watercolor, which I think that there's a natural pause in watercolor, and I think your temperament gets a little, your temperament changes with the medium. We have people in oil that paint really, really fast, and at some point that may work for them. It may not work for them,
Mm-hmm.
but I used to be one of them, and it wasn't working. And that's too dark. So how are we doing time-wise?
Well, I think we're almost at 5 o'clock. We're at about 4:53.
Okay, and
So it's really up to you whether you want to take a brief break or not.
I'm good. I can work for a long time, actually.
Okay, that's fine for me too.
I'm just wondering if the viewers that look at this in the future might want to speed up to be able to speed it up somehow.
They might be able to. I don't know. Margaret usually edits these, and so she will edit them. But you know, we found that most viewers really want to see the whole process at live speed. You know, they don't. It's not like watching paint dry. They really they do like watching paint dry.
That's amazing. Okay.
So yeah, let's keep going until you finish.
All right. I'm getting I'd say 20 more minutes.
Okay.
And I'm trying to keep these values flat so there's not a lot of value jump in them, but I think I got it a little too dark to begin with. And that helps it all hold together. Okay, so that has a pretty sharp edge right there. And we have a very strong, two strong solid values together. This one gets a little, little more blurry because that's a reflection. So I see
Mm-hmm.
the white going in there. I'm going to open this door here. All right. So do you have air conditioning in your house?
I do not, but I live in Alameda, so it's
Oh,
you know
right.
we have that wonderful Mediterranean weather. It's cool in the evening and warm during the day.
You know, I actually was in the city yesterday painting on right by the ocean, and it was just heaven.
Oh yeah, that'd be wonderful.
It is just too little too much to be inside.
So where are you painting from today?
I am in Redwood City.
Oh, so it's warmer for sure.
I think it's probably um, in the 80s. You know,
Yeah.
and the house gets really way too hot when it's 84. I start to get into a mood. I can feel depleted.
Yes. Yeah. I was just talking to a friend before the Zoom call, and she's out of Walnut Creek, and it can be, you know, it's 10 degrees higher when you drive through the tunnel,
Oh,
and
okay. Right.
it can be, well, it can be. The other day it was up to 110 degrees out there. It was
That's
stifling,
so unhealthy.
just stifling.
Yeah, we aren't really, I find it a little intimidating with those temperatures are. But we don't have to talk about that. Okay. So I'm to the palette knife because I find it easier to get a rough, to get a spot of color in. More quickly. So I feel like I can get a flat color and I can get the shape in.
So when you describe a flat color, what do you mean by that?
That it doesn't have striations. Like this over here has lots of value jumps.
I see. Okay.
And unless it's reporting from nature accurately, yeah, it'll distract the eye.
Mm-hmm.
So this should be kind of a flat color. It could still be a little lighter, but you see how it's not marbleized at all.
I see what you mean now.
Yeah. So I'm kind of just doing a final values check. And here is this is about it, pretty close to white, but it's definitely a distinct plain, a differently slightly light, darker value of white.
What is the value of using the palette knife versus a brush when you do this?
I think that I got accustomed to it for various reasons. I studied with an artist who forced us to use it, and again, I can scrape it and get a little bit better of I can predict how it'll fall on there a little bit more. Like, see how okay. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, I think one difference would be texture, correct?
Yeah.
Using a brush.
Yeah, I actually don't want texture. I'm trying to get everything smooth and flat, and so that I can see where the design problems are. So I'm trying not to get, I'm trying to say, I don't want so much texture. I think for me to get it on the canvas fast is why I use the palette knife. All right, so we're kind of closing in on these shapes and making them softer and flatter. And that one gets a little darker right here. Did I help? Are you still a little confused?
No, it's very helpful.
Okay. I'll give you a quiz at the end. Okay. So it's softening up. You can start to see a little bit of the nuance of it. I'm still checking on the values and shapes pretty carefully. And that is the exercise, right? When you do artwork, you're expressing yourself. Sometimes it might feel very narrowly with your, you've got the process, you've got the challenge of the subject. What is it that we want to say? We may not know. We might just want to be able to do something, copy nature beautifully. And we say that it could be enough to do it with brushstrokes that are sensitive. I think I was really interested in the value relationship.
Yeah, the way the colors blend is really is very helpful. You can see the gradation, and it doesn't jump out at you. You know, it's not.
And that, thank you. And that is what nature does. So I'm trying to use my skills to talk quietly.
Mhm.
That is a lot of what these masters did. They wanted to say something, and they talk quietly. They don't talk loudly.
Mhm.
And then, so the ones that talk loud, they sometimes were kicked out. They may have something to say socially. But usually they said things with this enormous skill that comes from all this practice.
Mhm.
So this is pretty subtle in here. Whoops. We don't even know what it looks like, so it's I think that's kind of fun.
Yes, I do too. It's
So it's really a lot of delayed gratification. It is not that I'm not trying to make it exciting, but it's
I
really,
I think it really helps your observational skills, at least mine, even watching you do it, to because you don't see a boat, you see shapes, and you can really see them much more clearly.
yeah. So this would be a foundational skill, and I imagine watercolorists spend a lot of time on foundational skills and foundational exercises.
Yes, uh-huh, we do. Uh,
So should plein air, and some people are really amazingly lucky with their plein air skills, but a lot of them are pretty good at drawing, and they're looking all the time. And it may be that they're very good designers. They can see it, they can see something, and they know how to edit out what shouldn't be there. That makes sense. All right, so I'm looking at that, and a viewer could probably see, that could be done a little differently. So different pair of eyes are a big deal, and they do help. It's not always easy to ask for help, but another pair of eyes is helpful. Okay, so let's of course it's stepping away from something. So I probably would never just do work on this and consider it done. I especially a value study, or with the painting, for example, on the other side of the room, I keep spinning it, turning it upside down, and I keep finding more errors. But that's what we did in Atelier. I would spend months on a bark drawing, and I would turn it upside down and look at it from different angles, and I would notice that my eye did not know. Okay, so that's pretty dark. I'm going to use my. This is also an Atelier tool. So that could have been done a little more accurately. Okay, let me just try and wrap this up. I said that earlier, but there's always more to do.
It's interesting. When you mentioned when you would get feedback, they would point out errors. What kind of errors would they give you feedback about? The actual shape or the values or
Everything. Well, I
everything?
think some people would say, this whole thing relating to this is actually still a little bit too dark. This sky.
I see.
So everyone might check things a little differently, but they're doing you a favor in themselves if they are really very observant, and you become very observant when you spend a lot of time in this world, right?
Uh-huh. Right,
I,
exactly.
so this could, you know, I would like to stand back and spend quite a bit more time to finesse it, but that's not a good start. It might lack luster, but it should have a sense of some realism,
Mm-hmm.
because yeah. And I'm gonna.
Yeah, this has been very helpful to watch you do this. It's for those of us who are afraid to take the leap to paint upside down. It's very helpful. It shows that it's doable and actually easier on your eyes, because you really do focus on observation and not on what your head says something should look like.
Exactly. Okay,
No,
so
it's
very well said. You are summarizing it beautifully. Thank you for not laughing me out of the.
no, it's been fascinating. I think it'll certainly improve watercolor skills, because you know, the really good watercolor artists are also good at drawing and good at accuracy. You
You
know,
know,
they're not, if they're not trying to create abstract art. I mean, it's
I did see David's demo,
David Saviano.
and I thought he did everyone a huge favor with his process because there is a method. There's a method, and that he used a photo and cropped it, and then gave himself plenty of time to decide, well, which one is more important? Which shapes do I like better? And you can even look at something upside down. What is it that I'm attracted to in this piece? Then you're it's kind of worth it. You feel like you have made good investment with that early laying the groundwork in an early fashion. And that's where method is important.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought he stated that beautifully, or he gave that example beautifully. Okay. Now we're getting those darks and grouping them. I think that I got the most important ones. So I'll turn it over.
The great reveal. It'll be. Oh my goodness. That's quite impressive. How accurate that is.
Thank you.
Wow.
And I'm seeing that this could come out of, there's an elliptical issue there. That edges could be a little less fuzzy, and some of the high points and low points, this could be slightly higher. And then I would put a wash or something to get this down. But
so now you can just, you can put in the fine details if you wanted to, but I mean, the painting is essentially finished except for those few details.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's amazing.
Well, thank you. And so the temperature adds quite a bit, as you can see over there. That is, I think that the building blocks of the drawing and that can be enough to do a study first, sketching it. So it's not, I may not go this far myself. So anyway, that's about it.
Well, that's very helpful. I think you've given us some useful skills that'll be really helpful in practicing. Also, I think it'll be helpful to look up the bark method, and I know the book is primarily focused on drawing figures, but it really, if you follow the method, I think it probably could really result in much more accuracy in doing, human figures. I mean, it's that I'm terrified of doing them. So I generally don't, and mainly it's because I really don't have a good sense of, that they're going to be accurate, but starting with them upside down might be a very good start
when you get a template from him that he's already done all the problem solving for you.
Right.
And you don't, and you can have someone advise you or try it on your own. I think it's easy to do it in a class setting, but you'd be surprised at how quickly you come along.
Right.
Then you start to learn how to take the leap and do the high points and low points yourself.
Right.
And you go from there. So he died early, and he did those on commission for Jerome. the master, but he was
Hmm.
probably one of the best drafts people in the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has
Anyway,
been very helpful, Kathy. I really appreciate you doing it.
okay.
And I'm going to take it off Spotlight so we can at least say goodbye in person here.
Okay.
Well, I'm showing Margaret on the photo, but that's okay. We'll see you in person, perhaps. Right now, I'm still seeing your workspace. So
Okay,
yeah, there you go. There you are.
right, sorry about that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. This is going to. I'll stop recording.
Okay.
And right now.